Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and I'm back today with a finished jewelry update where I get to share with you guys some finished pieces, things I've been up to since my last finished jewelry update. I know I share a lot of boxes and bead hauls and things like that, so I really like to come back, and one of my favorite things to do is get to share some of the finished pieces that I've made. It's always fun to see what you guys have been up to as well, and I think it helps to inspire us and help us come up with new ideas when we can have some fun sharing. So hopefully that's what this does for you guys. Today I'll have some pieces from the recent September 2020 Bargain Bead Box, something from the September Curated Bead Box, a few pieces from the September Paradise Aquatic Eureka Crystal Beads collection, and a few other pieces to share. Before we get into it, I am excited to announce this video is sponsored by Skillshare. So briefly, if you haven't heard of Skillshare, it's an online learning community where millions of people enjoy all kinds of inspiring classes for creative and curious types. Their topics include things like illustration, design, photography, and much more. They include classes for all skill levels, they fit your schedule, they don't include any ads, and they include hands-on projects and also feedback from their community. One of the classes that I particularly enjoyed this month is called iPhone Photography, How to Take Pro Photos on Your iPhone by Dale McManus. And I personally take most of my photos on my iPhone and really enjoyed a lot of the tips and tricks that he had to offer. If you also are a person who takes a lot of photos on your phone, especially if you have an online jewelry business, there's a lot of helpful info included in that course. Normally, a membership to Skillshare runs approximately $10 a month, but for a limited time, you can use the link right down below the video to get a free trial of Skillshare Premium, meaning you can check out all of their classes absolutely free for 2 months. You do need to put in your credit card info, but you can cancel at any time and perhaps put a reminder on your phone to cancel prior to the 2 months if you choose to do so. So either way, check out Skillshare and see the thousands of classes that they have to offer and continue to grow your creativity and journey of lifelong learning. All right, so you already got a little peek at this necklace, but this is one of the pieces that I made from the Bargain Bead Box. You can see it includes all sorts of different items that they included. Their theme was so beautiful this past month, I thought. They included a lot of the fancy jasper gemstone beads, as well as some other crystal accents, and even these tiny little faceted garnet beads. So with this, I had wrapped some of the garnet beads around the toggle clasp loop that they actually connected. I'm always trying to share some other alternate ideas for findings and things. So instead of just using what they sent as an actual toggle clasp, which you could certainly do, of course, you can use it as a part of a focal in a pendant. And that's what I did here. This actually came from a previous Bargain Bead Box, and it was also available for purchase on their sister site, but I thought it went really well with the theme, so I picked this up from my stash, but most of everything you see here did come from the box. This opening, it just seemed like it needed something else, so I decided to wire wrap a little fancy jasper stone right in there, and this acts like a frame. Just used some copper colored wire and a lot of copper colored findings from their box. Here's those bead caps, the crystal rondelles that they included, and here's a look at the necklace in full. So you can see that I also included the fancy jasper rondelles back here, so it kind of graduates and gets a little bit smaller, and then finished it up with some extender chain. I just cut this off from some chain I had in my stash because I had used the other chain that they included in the box. So that's the first piece I came up with from those contents. Next, I have one that I'm really happy with. In particular, this one took the bulk of the time, of course, because it is much more intricate. And this is where I took that 41 millimeter fancy jasper round focal, and I actually beaded a bezel around it with some Delica beads in a few different colors and even some 15 seed beads, and then the little teeny tiny 15-0 Charlottes in the center to finish that off. The thing that really sets this off, I think, are the garnet rounds that they included in the box, which I decided to add as a border around that beaded bezel And I love how this came out so much. I know some of you guys were saying that your pendants were not this nicely colored, and I'm so sorry to hear that. I know sometimes, especially with gemstones and things, the colors can vary quite a bit, and you win some, you lose some. It's all part of ordering a bead box. You just don't know what you're gonna get, and sometimes I am the recipient of some things that are not as nice looking as some others, according to what I hear in the comments sometimes. But anyway, I picked out the colors that I saw in this particular focal and really tried to play those up in the beaded bezel and also in the beaded portion here of the chain of the necklace. You can see I also used 2 of those copper colored metal beads as accents here and a few more of the fancy jasper stones and some bead caps, and brought up some of the garnet up into the beaded portion up here. I wanted this necklace to be a little bit longer, so it hung a little bit lower on the neck. And then I finished it off with some chain. Since this focal is so major and bead heavy, I figured the chain would kind of lighten it up just a little bit, and then finished it off with a hook and eye clasp that I had in my stash from a previous month. Oh, and here's a look at the back. It's just a little bit different, so it's almost kind of reversible. I just did something different here where the beading meets the chain, and just a slightly different color combination on that side than on this side. If you're interested in any of the pieces that I share on these finished jewelry updates, definitely check out my website, orchidandopal.com, to see if any of them are available on my site for sale. If there's anything you don't see, it's possible I haven't listed it yet, so feel free to send me an email, reach out to me, and don't be afraid to ask. All right, so here's the next necklace I was able to come up with from the contents, and this is actually done with Kumihimo. And if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about when I say Kumihimo, it is a form of Japanese knotting or braiding using multiple cords around one of these really cool discs. This one happens to be by the Beadsmith. It is foam, and the Kumihimo that I did for this necklace was an 8-strand version. I am very new to Kumihimo. It's something that I'm starting to learn, but after doing this project, am totally in love with it. I completed it with the S-Lon cord that you can see here. This is the type of cord that I used. And it's such a basic technique, but it creates these beautiful spirals of beads depending on the types of beads you use and the order you put them together. And I had so much fun seeing this come together. It actually is something else that it looks like it takes longer than it really does, especially if you're using larger beads. If you're using larger beads, it tends to go together pretty quickly. So that's something new and different I haven't shared yet here, is any pieces including the Kumihimo technique. I also used some of these large hole beads that I had gotten from BB Craft a little while back, and that's covering some of the knots where my Kumihimo ends, and then I transitioned that into more of a single strand situation on the back. But you can see it's very bead heavy. I used the leaf pendant component that came from the box, and I even used the little copper round basic spacer beads that they sent in the Kumihimo, and I alternated those with the crystals to keep adding that copper kind of up the chain. I used the crystal bicones, the little crystal coin beads, and also these faceted crystals that came from the contents. Here's a look at the necklace in full, and then I have a leaf bead which was left over that I used to add to the extender chain as an extra decoration to go with the leaf pendant. Here are some chandelier earrings, very dramatic, that kind of coordinate with that necklace. These are some very drapey, cascading chain and leaf chandelier earrings used from the chandelier earring components that they included. I popped in a couple crystals in that opening with a jump ring and 3 strands of the chain that they included, adding a few beads to the bottom of those. Some more of the crystal bicones and the little coin beads. And they are so sparkly and flowy and fall-like, just like all the items from this box. Next up, I'll share a bracelet that I made from the contents. I have some more of the fancy jasper round stones. These were quite a bit larger, and also some more of those crystal rondelles and the jasper rondelles. So I recently shared the right angle weave memory wire cuff bracelet tutorial with you guys. And in that one, I used beads that were quite a bit smaller, and it did not require a clasp. With this one, I was just experimenting, and due to the extra weight, I decided to add a clasp to make this something that wouldn't slip off. The memory wire is very flexible and holds its shape, but only really to a point. So if you wanted to use larger beads in that and you wanted an idea, here's an example. And instead of just leaving the memory wire open, like in the tutorial where the rondelles are here, with these larger beads, it left a much larger gap. And that's where I fed another rondelle, these gemstones, in between each of the crystals, and it fit together really nicely. And then I had some quite large wire guards. I ended up attaching those to the ends of the memory wire and then looping the memory wire around that to create a loop that I could attach the jump rings and clasp to. So that's how I figured that out. And that's a look at what it would look like on the wrist. Here's another necklace I have to share with you from the contents of the Bargain Bead Box. Once again, we have some beautiful fancy jasper, this time the rondelles, and use some of these copper findings, and here's that metal bead. And since I did use the toggle clasp in the pendant that I first showed you and in a pair of earrings that I'm about to show you, I wanted to give you an idea about something you can do with the toggle bars. So this is really thinking outside the box, I think. But what I did was I took the two toggle bars that were left over from a pair of earrings I made, and I wrapped these jasper rondelles with that copper bead in the middle in 3 strips and kind of held all of these together, and used the loops to my advantage where I could attach my wire and also attach a split ring up here to turn this into a pendant. And I had an extra one of these charms. I think it looks cool hanging down from this pendant and really goes well with the theme. So that's another idea for you. Hoping to share a video in the future with multiple ways that you can use toggle clasp components besides just as toggle clasps. So I will try to do that. I'm slowly gathering pieces like this to put that together. So here's a look at the necklace in full. You can see I just finished it off with a lobster clasp and some extender chain, and this is the chain that they had included in this month's box. As far as earrings go, here's a pair that I was talking about where I used the toggle clasp components to frame these green fancy jasper beads, and then I hung these tree charms down below that. By the time this video comes out, I may have already shared the quick and easy tutorial idea for creating earrings like this. And then the final item that I made from the September box are these earrings, which I think came out great. They're pretty simple, just using the tree charms, these leafy spacer metal beads, some bead caps, and then some more of the fancy jasper. So that right here is a look at everything together that I was able to make from the September Bargain Bead Box, and it's why I keep repeating over and over again how wonderful the value is of it, because I'm always amazed by how much can be made from the contents of that one box. Plus, I still have a few things left over that I didn't even use. There were a few things that came from my personal stash, but most of it came from the box, and certainly the inspiration did as well. And for $17.95 for that box shipped directly to you, it's just such a great value. And if you haven't checked out that video, I will try to link it in the corner for you so you can see the unboxing. And also I will try to link to the subscription down below, as well as a coupon code if you are new to the subscription and would like to try it out for yourself. All right, getting into some other things, I have a memory wire bracelet I wanted to share that I made from mostly contents of the September Curated Bead Box. You can see a lot of the glass beads included and some of those jadeite beads. I did add a few of the metal components from my own stash. And another thing I was experimenting with was using a smaller memory wire. instead of the larger 2¼ inch. I believe this is a smaller diameter, and with more beads and heavier beads, one of the tricks to getting these to stay on your wrist better is maybe to use a smaller diameter bracelet memory wire, because even though it looks like it might be too tiny when it's in the package, when you add the beads, it stretches it out a little bit, and also as you add heavier beads, it weighs it down a little bit. So here's a look at the memory wire bracelet on my wrist, and it's snug, but it's not too tight, which is something I prefer. Some of you may like your bracelets looser, and that's understandable, but if you like your bracelets to be more snug on your wrist and you're wondering why your memory wire is too loosey-goosey, especially when you're creating a stack like this, just experiment with a smaller diameter memory wire, even if it looks a bit small in the package. So that's a look at that bracelet on. I had some requests to share something made from the contents of the curated box, and so I definitely wanted to come back and do that. I think it's a great box for beginners because they send a lot of basic round shapes as well as some basic findings, and you can definitely make some really nice and easy stretch cord bracelets and memory wire bracelets like you see here. And I still had a whole bunch of beads left over. Next up, now I know I already shared this bracelet in the center in my last update, but I did not share these two, and I have done the tutorial on these memory wire cuff bracelets that I already shared, but I thought I would include them here as well. So this is the one I made in the tutorial video. Great way to use memory wire to create these flexible cuff bracelets, and a great way to use some small rondelles and bicones or 4 and 6 millimeter rounds, which I know a lot of us have. This one was made with the lava beads that came in the Paradise Aquatic collection by Eureka Crystal beads, and these check glass druck beads were included as well. One thing I want to point out, because I had to work with these beads several times in this project, taking them out, adding them again, some of the coating has worn away, so I'm not quite happy with that, but that happens with some of these check glass beads sometimes if you're reworking them. So just something to keep in mind. If I had just used them in the project once and hadn't changed it around, they probably would be okay, but it's not that noticeable to anyone who wouldn't really know if I was wearing this. Nobody's gonna be that up close to it. So I am totally fine with keeping this for my personal use. Another bracelet I had shared before, but I have since come back and made two more, and I'm going to be sharing the tutorial pretty soon, is this one. This was based on the Eureka Crystal Beads Serene Lavender collection, and I'm calling it the backlit bracelet. Here are the other two variations that I made, and it includes the Tila beads there on the back, as well as some 2-hole crescents, some of the little teacup beads, and some bugle beads, all things you can find on their site. And I like in particular using some of these metallic or flashier Tila beads in the background because it gives it that backlit look, which is where I came up with the name. So if you like this kind of geometric looking bracelet and you have the Serene Lavender collection or you have these similar materials, be on the lookout for that tutorial in the future. It's also a pretty easy way to get started using some 2-hole beads if you haven't already and would like to play around with that. Another design from their Serene Lavender collection I had shared before was in this design or similar design. Have come up with a new colorway. I am practicing with the best way to put these together so I can share these in a future tutorial, but this is a bugle bead ribbon bracelet that I came up with based on the contents in that. And for this one, I used some of the little 15-0 Charlotte beads, being little seed beads with a single facet in them, so they give a slightly sparkly look depending on how they're moved around. And it's another fun way to use bugle beads because who doesn't need more ways to use those? And I think this bracelet is just so much fun. Another tutorial that will be coming pretty soon are for these brick stitch leaf earrings. I created these brick stitch leaves by coming up with my own pattern on my computer, and I will be turning that into a free download for you guys within the next, week or so. So be on the lookout for that, as well as a tutorial where I show you how I put this all together. I used the acrylic leaves that you might remember from a previous BB Craft beadworking.com video. And I also used some check glass maple leaf beads from a bead box bargain shopping trip and put all these together for a very fall inspired leafy earring look. I actually drew up several different leaf designs. Here's another one, this time also using some of the marigold color check glass leaves and some yellow acrylic leaves, and created these in a brick stitch pattern with delica beads. The final 3 items I have to share with you are from the Paradise Aquatic Contents from Eureka Crystal Beads. This is another memory wire bracelet I was playing around with from the contents because they had included some gold toned memory wire in that collection, as well as these orange colored druck beads and some of this cup chain. So I used the twisted wire that I had in my stash, something I had also picked up on BB Craft previously, and figured out a way to wrap the cup chain around these beads onto the memory wire to create another type of cuff style bracelet, which I really like to and hope to share with you guys as well. So lots of tutorials to come. You can see that that's why I share a lot of bead boxes here. I'm constantly inspired by them, and that's something that speaks to me so that I can bring you some new concepts, and it helps me to get outside of any ruts I may have if I were to just purchase beads on my own. But you gotta love memory wire for its flexibility, and not needing a clasp is always handy. Next up are these earrings I made with the custom coated rivolis that they included. They had a lot of flashes of pink and blue inside, so I went with mainly that color combination, bringing in the little tiny micro-faceted turquoise that they included, the 6.0 hot pink silver-lined milky seed beads. I picked out some of these 4mm bicones from the assortment that they sent, and the Rivoli is sitting in a setting like that, which I like this setting. It's nice and flat, and also has 2 holes on either side where you can bead around it for either bead weaving or embroidery or something of that nature. So this tutorial is already filmed. I look forward to sharing that in the near future too, if you're interested in playing around with something from the contents of that collection, including the post earring components that they sent. And then the final piece I have to share, which also is from that collection, is this bracelet. I used the 8mm matte aqua and clear fire polish beads that they had sent, as well as these 4mm fire polish, some 8.0 and 11.0 seed beads, and used a button I had in my stash that's from BB Craft to finish this off as just something different, using a button clasp instead of a magnetic or a toggle, and this ended up working out great. So another design I'll be sharing with you guys in the future, and if you flip it over, you can see that I also utilized some of the little quarter tilas that they sent in that collection as well. It's holding this frame together, and it's very flexible, and I love all those tones of aqua and turquoise. All right, guys, so that is everything I have to share with you in this month's installment of the Finished Jewelry Update. I hope you enjoy checking out what I've been up to, and hopefully it inspires some ideas for you, and maybe there's some tutorials you're looking forward to. Lots of bead box fun here, and you can see why I like them so much. So a huge thank you to all you guys for watching, for all of you longtime subscribers, all of you new subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, I would love to have you come back. Please hit that button, and if you enjoyed this video, I'd love for you to give it a big thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Down below the video, I share my social media handles if you'd like to follow me along on any of those places, as well as my website and blog at orchidandopal.com. Also, a huge thank you to Skillshare. I will leave the link for that special offer down below the video. Having their sponsorship really allows me to come back and continue sharing more and more content with you guys. Until next time, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day and you're staying healthy and well. And as always, happy beading.